This guy can hold down a massive collapsing building to save people. And he can beat the crap out of a giant-ass kaiju. That's right, today I'll be talking about James Gunn's 2025 version of Superman. This movie is absolutely everything. There's Superman, of course, a super dog, a pocket dimension, and every damn thing that you'd want to watch in a superhero flick. So now that Supergirl is arriving in literal days, I thought, why not discuss the complete story of 2025 Superman? Alright, let's get right into it. James Gunn's 2025 Superman movie doesn't waste time retelling the same Superman origin story that we already know. Still, in case you don't know much about Superman, let me get you up to speed. Superman was born on this planet called Krypton. However, Superman's parents sent him on a pod to Earth because Krypton was about to implode. They themselves died on Krypton to save their little baby. After arriving on Earth, the Kryptonian child was adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent, two farmers who lived just outside Smallville, Kansas. Soon after, he became one of the strongest superheroes we all know as Superman. Back to the movie. James Gunn's Superman opens up with some crucial context. 3 centuries ago, the first superpowered beings called metahuman showed up on Earth. Then, 3 decades ago, a baby boy from planet Krypton crash landed on Earth in a spaceship. He basically lands on a farm in Kansas, where a kind farmer, Jonathan Kent, and his wife, Martha Kent, find him and raise him as their own son. 3 years ago, the boy, now a grown-up, declares himself as Superman, the most powerful metahuman of all time. Then, 3 weeks ago, Superman stopped Baravia, a fictional Eastern European country, from invading another country called Jorhanpur. Well, this interference from Superman sparked controversy across the globe. Then, 3 hours before the movie kicks off, a metahuman called Hammer of Baravia attacks Superman in Metropolis, the city where Superman lives. Also, this Hammer of Baravia dude is an armored metahuman who was sent by Baravia's government. Guess what? 3 minutes ago, he kicked the ass of Superman. Now, we see a brutally beaten Superman who crash lands on the frozen ground of Antarctica. Jeez, he's really battered up. Suddenly, Superman starts to whistle, and a cute white dog comes running toward him. His name is Crypto, and yep, he is a super dog from Krypton, Superman's home planet. Crypto then literally drags Superman by his cape and takes him to the Fortress of Solitude. Ouch. This is Superman's secret home base in the Arctic. Interestingly, the Fortress of Solitude remains hidden beneath the ice and only rises after detecting Kryptonian DNA. Inside the secret base, Superman has robots, who are basically Kryptonian mechanical helpers. Now, these same robots, one of them called Gary, treat Superman with concentrated sunlight. Side note, Superman gets his powers from the yellow sun of Earth. Side note, this robot wants to be called Gary and eventually will be called Gary, but right now he's just a robot. In his home planet, Krypton, he was just a regular guy because Krypton had a red sun, but since our Earth has a yellow sun, it works out for this guy because it gives him some super cool superpowers. Yeah, Superman can also heal really quick in direct sunlight. Anyway, during this healing process, the robots play a farewell message from Jor-El and Lara, Superman's Kryptonian and biological parents. Aw, that's kinda sweet. In the video, Jor-El and Lara are basically encouraging Superman to do good for people on Earth. But before he can see all of it, the second part of the video glitches out. Well, it turns out the second part kinda got destroyed when Superman's pod crash landed on Earth. Because of this, Superman was never able to see the second part of his parents' message. Okay, back to business. Superman isn't done with Hammer of Baravia, so after getting healed, he leaves for Metropolis. Meanwhile, the Hammer of Baravia is mocking the civilians over their superhero's defeat, but Superman arrives for a rematch just in time to maybe prove him wrong. Well, during the fight, Superman gets slammed into the pavement again. Damn. The scene then cuts to Angela Spica, also known as the Engineer, arriving near Superman's secret lair in the Arctic. The Engineer is also a metahuman and a walking arsenal, to be honest. Her body is packed with nanites that let her generate any weapon she desires, which is terrifying. So Angela wants to step inside Superman's fortress to see what's in there, but before she can get in, the place sinks into the ice. Nice. Back to Superman, an ordinary food vendor named Malika Lee, who once gave him free falafel, shows up to help Superman get out of the pavement. Alright, at this point, we learn that the Hammer of Baravia guy is actually getting puppeteered by Lex Luthor from the Luthor Corp Tower. Yeah, all of us Superman fans already know this guy, but just for the sake of the video, let me give you this bald bastard a proper introduction. Lex is a genius billionaire who just hates Superman just cause he exists. Maybe because he has such good hair. Anyway, after kicking Superman's ass, Hammer of Baravia arrives at Luthor Corp Tower through a portal, removes his armor, and shows us who is underneath. It's actually Ultraman. who's still wearing a mask so we can't see his face, but yeah, he's the one wreaking havoc as the Hammer of Baravia. The next morning, we meet Superman's civilian avatar, Clark Kent, who is a reporter at the Daily Planet newspaper. He wears specs and has curly hair. Dude, he looks so good and different. Kinda have a crush. Also, you should know that Clark Kent wears hypno glasses made from Kryptonian materials. These badass glasses subtly manipulate public perception, which is why no one actually realizes that Clark is really Superman. It's amazing, right? Also really convenient. Moving on, everyone in his office talks about the front page Superman exclusive. Then we meet Clark's pretty awesome and super smart colleague, Lois Lane. And just so you know, Clark and Lois are dating already. Lois is intelligent, she's fearless, and everything that makes her a great journalist. And yeah, Lois already knows that Clark is Superman. Then we have Jimmy Olsen, the newspaper outlet's photographer and Clark's best friend. Also, for some reason, Jimmy is just too popular amongst the girls. That's right, girls just can't get enough of Jimmy.
Very funny, Lois.
See? He's really something. Elsewhere, Lex is pitching his team of metahumans Planet Watch to the U.S. Department of Defense. The team consists of Angela, his airborne Raptor drone army, and of course, Ultraman. Lex clearly states that his metahumans are a controllable alternative to Superman, especially after what he did in Jarenpur. Yeah, we're gonna get to that part soon. The senior military official, General Stephen Maury, and another senior government figure, Rick Flag Sr., turn him down right away. Why? Simple, the US government doesn't exactly see Superman as a threat. Also, nobody wants a private corporate entity to have a monopoly over national defense. Of course, this pisses off Lex, like the dude gets really pissed off. And later that evening, Lois enters her home and realizes that there's someone else in the apartment. She picks up the baseball bat, but it's actually Clark. Yeah, dude just kinda acts like he owns the place. Clark has been preparing breakfast for dinner to celebrate their 3-month dating anniversary. Yeah, is it really such surprising news that Superman is a walking green flag? Anyway, Lois says that if Clark does all of the interviews for Superman, he won't be able to fool everybody forever. People eventually will wonder, hey, who's that reporter who keeps interviewing Superman? Why hasn't anybody else been able to interview him? So Clark asks Lois to interview Superman instead, and Lois takes the chance and says, how about we do that now? The interview begins and gets heated as Clark and Lois's ideologies clash. While Clark thinks as Superman, he was right to stop Baravia's invasion of Jarenpur. That's because Baravia's army could have killed countless Jarenpur civilians. However, Lois thinks Superman must have at least talked to the US president before taking matters into his own hands. To this, Clark simply replies he didn't have enough time for this. He couldn't let even a single person die on his watch. Then gets pissed, picks up his stuff, and he walks out. The next day, Lex walks straight into the Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica with Angela, Ultraman, and his selfie-obsessed girlfriend, Eve Teschmacher. Wait, how in the hell was he able to enter? Doesn't the fortress only open for Superman or somebody related to him? Now, without wasting even a second, Baldy, Lex, and the villains start destroying these robots. They also incapacitate Crypto and steal the incomplete Kryptonian message. In fact, Angela also uses her nanites to restore the damaged portion. What? Basically, the part of the message that no one ever saw can now be played. And unfortunately, Lex gets to it before anybody else. Dude, where's Superman? Well, Lex made a smart move this time to keep Superman distracted. Apparently, he released a freaking kaiju in Metropolis to keep Superman busy while he ransacks the Fortress of Solitude. Meanwhile, in Metropolis, Superman is dealing with the kaiju, which has grown enormous now. But our superhero is not alone. The Justice Gang is here to help him. There's the cocky and loudmouth member of the Green Lantern Corps, Guy Gardner. Basically, Gardner has this powerful alien ring that helps him physically manifest anything. I mean, anything that he wants. And then there's the winged superheroine Hawk Girl, who comes with insane strength and aerial combat skills. Finally, we have the genius-level intellectual superhero, Mr. Terrific, who has all sorts of fancy techie toys. The Justice Gang's ways to tackle the monster are annoying Superman. They're being careless, and Superman needs to keep everybody safe. We can clearly see the disappointment on his face. Regardless, the Justice Gang and Superman successfully defeat the monster's bum without getting anybody hurt. But once this is over, Superman sees something disturbing on TV right in the middle of the street. Shockingly, Lex has been broadcasting the entire message from Superman's parents. Remember how the second part wasn't fully complete? Well, Lex managed to fully decrypt it, and it shows that Superman's parents literally sent him to Earth to rule, not to serve them. They want Superman to take as many wives as he can and rebuild the Kryptonian race using humanity. God damn. This can't be right. Right? Every freaking news channel is playing that message, and people who love Superman are doubting his intentions now. Oh man. Naturally, Superman walks away from the public fallout, and the Justice Gang chases him to get some answers. When they confront him, Superman clearly says that he was familiar with the first part, but he never got the chance to watch the second part because it was damaged. Superman tells them that the video might be fabricated, but he's unsure. However, Mr. Terrific makes it clear that the computer forensic guys don't call anything legit unless they're sure.
No way, Clark. I know this computer forensics guys. They're not gonna say it's legit.
unless they are sure.
Dude, what the hell? Right then, Superman realizes that someone must have raided the fortress to steal his footage, so he flies off. We then cut to Bravia, where the country's president, Vasil Gorkos, has been talking badly about Superman live on TV.
Women, the most physically attractive, and wants to add them to his secret harem.
Don't you dare, you old bastard. I'm sure he's very happy about this video thing. As this ends, Gorkos enters a portal from his office and goes straight to meet Lex. Aw man, they're working together? I should have guessed. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, Superman finds the fortress exactly as he feared. Robots are destroyed and Krypto's nowhere to be seen. So the Sup goes straight to Lex's office. He suspects that Lex must be behind this and demands that Lex give him back his dog. Lex remains calm, not because he's a good man, but because his girlfriend is filming everything on her phone. Also, he knows that this goody two-shoes Blue Scout isn't gonna harm him.
Ugly dog in a cape?
What did you say?
I didn't say anything.
As the footage goes out, things get even worse, and now hardly anybody's willing to trust Superman at all. Later, Lois finds Clark at his apartment, and they discuss the situation. Clark says the video footage was destroyed when he arrived on Earth, and he knows his parents would never want something so terrible. Clark also says he isn't here to rule or get a harem. Lois confirms that she, out of all people, never doubted his intentions. Clark tells Lois that he loves her, and then reveals his plan. Apparently, Superman has a warrant out for his name, so he's ready to surrender. Clark is hoping that the US government will take him to wherever Lex has put Krypto. This is the only way for Clark to get his dog back. The next day, Superman surrenders and Rick Flag Sr. hands him over to Lex Luthor. It's because only Lex has the resources to hold Superman. Then, this baldy takes Superman to the artificial pocket dimension he created to seal the metahumans and his ex-girlfriends. Really, dude? As Superman whistles to call Krypto, Lex introduces him to Rex, an alien metahuman who can transform his body into any known substance, even foreign substances like kryptonite. Then, like promised, Rex turns his fist into kryptonite and Superman's strength starts to drain. Meanwhile, Lois is trying really hard to find out how Lex Luthor is connected to all of this. She's discussing it with Jimmy and finally spills the beans. Luthor Corp sells weapons of destruction to Bravia for almost nothing. Why though? Leaving that all aside, Jimmy does something interesting. He's been texting somebody named Mutant Toes on his phone and finally gets a tip on Superman's location. Jimmy then tells Lois that Lex has kept Superman in a pocket dimension. Jimmy, you're my man. Back inside the pocket universe, we meet an army of cybernetically enhanced monkeys who are flooding social media with anti-Superman content. Yeah, that's how I see trolls who talk crap on the internet behind faceless accounts. Then, Lex shows Superman a glimpse of Krypto, and this prick is making Krypto run endlessly by making him watch squirrels. Now, Lex warns Rex that if he ever fails to keep a check on Superman or get rid of that kryptonite, Rex's baby, who's in the opposite cell, will suffer. Oh, so that's why Rex has been helping Lex. Makes sense. Meanwhile, Jimmy goes to meet this Mutant Toes person, and wait a minute, it's Eve, the girlfriend of Lex Luthor. Apparently, Eve is literally in love with Jimmy because they used to date, I guess. And Jimmy, well, he's using her to bring Lex down and help Superman. I kind of feel bad for Eve, but we gotta help Superman. Also, Jimmy wants Eve to help him find a connection between Bravia and Lex, and well, Eve agrees to help. Elsewhere, Lois meets the Justice Gang to get some help for Superman. But guess what? Gardner refuses to help because now Superman is a government matter. He doesn't want to get involved in that mess. Hawkgirl also says no for the same reason as Gardner's. However, Mr. Terrific agrees to help because he's eager to see what's happening. So he takes Lois to Fort Kramer, where they are holding Superman. Apparently, Mr. Terrific has put a nanobot tracker into Superman's bloodstream, and so he's able to track him. For some reason, Mr. Terrific puts a nanobot tracker in the bloodstream of everybody that he knows. I guess that's smart, but it's mostly creepy. Meanwhile, in the Pocket universe, Lex puts a gun on Malik's head. The guy from before who apparently gave Superman free falafel. Lex threatens to kill Malik if Superman doesn't reveal the names of his Earth parents. You know, Jonathan and Martha Kent. For obvious reasons, Superman does not give Lex the names, so the bald douchebag shoots Malik right in front of the Sups. Lex, you're horrible. Just horrible. Also, you're like the biggest hater I've ever seen. Around this time, Mr. Terrific and Lois arrive in Fort Kramer, and after beating a whole lot of guys with his drones, Terrific sees the portal to the Pocket Dimension. Terrific confirms that this portal is not really stable, and using it too many times could tear apart the Earth. Oh. Now, Terrific hacks into the portal so that they can grab Superman and get the hell out of there. Meanwhile, Rex starts to feel really bad about what he's doing to Superman, so he gets rid of the kryptonite and creates a smaller version of the sun instead. Why? Well, it's simple. Rex wants to heal Superman using the sun, and that works like bloody Harry Potter magic. Of course, Superman isn't at 100%, but he's enough strength to break out of the cage. And once out of the cage, Superman grabs Rex's son from the other cell, and of course, he frees Krypto as well. This Rex guy is super cute, by the way.
You have to take him.
I can't carry him when I change forms.
Now, while Lex's captors corner Superman and Rex, Mr. Terrific uses his drone to track down Superman's location. However, Superman and Rex have to hurry the hell up because the portal to Earth is about to close because of the damage, but hey, it's Superman we're talking about, for God's sake. Of course, Supes almost gets pulled into the nasty black hole, but with Crypto's help, he manages to reach Lois and Mr. Terrific's location right before the portal shuts down. Now, after getting out of the pocket dimension, Terrific decides to stay back at Fort Kramer to study the pocket dimension. He asks Lois to use his aircraft to get Superman somewhere safe. Also, Rex and his baby are safe, and they simply walk away from the scene. Soon after, Lex learns that Superman has escaped and gets so pissed that he lets out his anger on Eve. Well, Eve has had enough of this bald bastard's bullshit, so she decides to send Jimmy some photos, which can apparently prove that Lex is working with Garcos.
I have everything you need to ruin Lex forever.
What? Where?
Oh, I have it right here.
Unfortunately for Eve, though, Lex finds out what Eve is up to, and the prick grabs the poor girl just as she sends Jimmy the evidence. Yeah, you really should not have treated her like crap, Lex. Cut to Superman, who guides Lois to his adoptive parents' place, where Lois meets Jonathan and Martha. Now, while Clark rests, Lois gets the evidence against Lex from Jimmy. Around the same time, Lex tries to reopen the portal to the pocket dimension, even though it's damaged. His team warns him that doing so could open a dimensional rift, but the guy does not care at all. The next morning, Clark has a heart-to-heart with his Earth dad. As expected, Clark is heartbroken that his biological parents wanted him to rule over the Earth. However, Jonathan says that no matter what, Clark is his son. Also, doesn't matter what his biological parents wanted him to do. It's what he decides to do with his power that matters.
Your actions. That's what makes you who you are.
That's gotta be the advice of a lifetime. Next, we see that Baravia's president is again using his military to invade Jaranpur, this relentless prick. To make things worse, as feared, a dimensional rift starts to open because of Lex's darn portal, so the civilians start evacuating the surrounding area. During all this, Lois explains to her boss, Perry White, the evidence against Lex. Apparently, Lex was supplying weapons and his tech to Bravia because he wanted half of Jaranpur after the invasion. Basically, Lex wants to create a technologically advanced utopia in Jaranpur and become a goddamn king. In your dreams, man. Now, Lois, Jimmy, and Barry sit in Mr. Terrific's aircraft. Yeah, she still hasn't given the aircraft back to fly away from the building before it collapses, and on their ride, Jimmy types in the story revealing Lex's plans with Jaranpur. It's about goddamn time. Moving on, the dimensional rift starts spreading like crazy and even destroys Lex's tower. However, Lex escapes in his fancy aircraft with his nerd science team. Fortunately, though, Superman arrives on the scene to save some people and give us one of the most cinematic scenes of the entire movie. Look at that. That's just art. Now, Mr. Terrific also joins Superman on his hover chair, which is just a flying chair. Terrific tells Clark that the code to stop the rift is with Lex. However, before Superman can get to Lex, Ultraman and Angela gang up on him. These two sickos even knock out Mr. Terrific. And then Angela tries to choke Superman by releasing all her nanoparticles into Superman's lungs. But guess what? Superman can't see or even breathe, so he decides to fly directly into the sky while Angela keeps holding on to him. Now, after reaching to the top, Superman falls straight down to Earth. How does he do this, you may ask? Well, Angela's nanoparticles are currently inside Superman's body. Without her nanoparticles, Angela cannot survive the fall. Even Ultraman tries to beat the hell out of Superman while he's falling, but it just doesn't work. Eventually, Superman crashes straight down to Earth, and while he survives the fall, Angela is absolutely knocked out. Just knocked out? She didn't obliterate herself? However, Ultraman is still alive, and after the fall, his mask has come off. Now, we get to see who Ultraman actually is, and he is, wait for it, Superman's clone. What the hell? Apparently, Lex created Superman's clone using his DNA, which is like really easy to find for a genius asshole like Lex, so you can say that right now. Lex is controlling Superman's clone to fight against Superman himself. Side note, it's also how Lex was able to get inside the Fortress of Solitude. Ultraman was with him at the time, and he had Kryptonian DNA. Now, we briefly cut to Jaranpur, where we see that the Justice Gang is turned up to help Jaranpur against Baravia's military. On top of the Justice Gang, Rex is also here to lend a hand for a good cause. That's so great. In fact, during the chaos, Hawk Girl grabs Garcos, the sadistic asshole president of Baravia, and drops the dude from the sky. Oh, I love her. Back to Superman, Lex reveals that he hates Superman for having powers that he can never have. That is why this baldy did all of this. It's high school level jealousy. Shockingly, Lex created this whole Baravian conflict just so he could get an excuse to kill Superman. Somebody give this dude an award for being the biggest hater of 2025. At this point, the freaking black hole almost starts to show from the dimensional rift. Also, Superman has had enough of this nonsense, so while getting one hell of a beating from the clone, Superman just pushes the clone into the black hole. Now, Black Hole gets its own Superman. Once that's done, Superman, Krypto, and Mr. Terrific fly straight into Lex's aircraft. Of course, Terrific gets straight down to stop the rift, and Superman tries to talk some sense into Baldy. But then, Krypto kind of decides to give Lex the Loki treatment from the MCU by beating him like crazy.
Krypto, drop him! Krypto, drop him! Drop him!
By this time, Terrific has successfully closed down the dimensional rift. To make things even worse for Lex, Daily Planet puts out that Lex was working with the Bravian government all this time. Yeah, you're done for, dude. Seeing what Lex was up to and how Superman saved the city, several news reporters apologized to Superman on live TV. So, yeah, people now realize that they were wrong about Superman. He's actually a good guy. But who cares, because you and I never doubted him at all. Meanwhile, the Justice Gang, which now also includes Rex, has successfully saved Jar-Henper from the Baravian military. Nice. Once the fight is over, Superman reunites with Lois while Jimmy reunites with Eve. It's beautiful. A little while later, we see Superman back in his fortress, where we meet Superman's cousin, Supergirl, also known as Kara Zor-El.
Where is my dog?
Damn. Interestingly, we then find out that Crypto is Supergirl's pet and not Superman's. However, Supergirl left the dog with her cousin because she likes to go to other planets to get drunk. Apparently, Superman and Supergirl can't get drunk on a planet with a yellow sun because of their metabolism. Also, who even likes Earth's party scene? Not this guy. The next moment, we see that Superman no longer listens to his Kryptonian's parents' message while in the fortress. Instead, he sees all the pictures of his childhood with Jonathan and Martha. Aw, that's cute. 'Cause I'm a punk rocker, yes I am. Okay guys, that is the story of Superman 2025, filled with humanity and hope and our own goody two-shoes Blue Scout. Before you leave, definitely check out some other amazing videos from the channel. And yeah, because we have a lot of those. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. See ya.